Storm treatment areas usually are made with all sorts of plant life, which clean the water. But American Water believed that we could just throw some of the limestone right that we have on site in certain patterns and have the water flow in certain directions and at certain speeds, and that the dirty water could be cleaned faster and cheaper. After a 6-month study, it was confirmed that yes, limestone does clean water, and in many instances cleans it faster and cheaper than the plant-based STAs. American Water created a white paper, which the district was given and still has. If anybody's interested in it, we could dig it up somewhere. It's quite fascinating, and one of the unfortunate things that happened throughout this whole story is that white paper got buried in government bureaucracy and hasn't really seen the light of day. It doesn't fit the conventional wisdom that people want these storm treatment areas to be full of pretty plants. The idea that rocks could do it better doesn't fit the narrative. And so unfortunately that paper's been buried. One of the things that I'm hoping comes out of this talk and future Lake Point projects is that paper gets studied, criticized, and at least given a better look. After a lot of efforts were made and discussions and brainstorming, Lake Point and American Water came up with what at the time was the best solution, and this was presented to the city of West Palm Beach. Within less than a year, Lake Point could have added 2 MGDs of clean water to the system, and that number, as the retention ponds were built out, would go up by, I forget, 1 or 1.5 MGDs each year of new clean water. Much was talked about water in West Palm, but in South Florida, the water district decides where water goes, and so that was always the case, that this water could go to West Palm Beach, but it could also go to other places down the water chain. After the West Palm Beach presentation, what had been talked about by everyone as a good project all of a sudden started to appear places as a bad project. What could cause opposition like this to happen? Well, there could be technical issues, environmental issues, political will could change, or something much more nefarious could happen. That's what happened here at Lake Point. It started in the press. The Stewart News and the Palm Beach Post wrote unflattering articles. Whereas they had been supportive in the past, all of a sudden they weren't. And as newspapers will do, they focused on certain aspects of the project but didn't mention others. One of the articles that I put up here was particularly poignant because it says, although West Palm Beach water officials say they don't need help from outsiders. Well, if that's the case, we wouldn't have been there. That is not the case. Yes, it's true that there might have been 1 or 2 officials who didn't want our help, but the majority of the West Palm Beach Commission did, and the Water District was encouraging us. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been there. And then it got worse. There was a In the Shade campaign against Lake Point. For those who don't live in Florida, we are a sunshine state. All communications amongst government officials are discoverable and need to be done in the sunshine. Any citizen can hear what the government officials are saying to each other. That was not the case with Lake Point. There were private emails between ex-commissioners and current commissioners. Cute names appeared in these sunshine emails. And ultimately, when the naysayers couldn't come up with any questions that were not immediately answered by science or permits, here's what happened. In 1990, George was me. I was convicted of a crime, a felony, and the naysayers decided to use that against Lake Point. Even though the Water District, Martin County, everybody knew about it, there were no secrets. All of a sudden, when science didn't work, the campaign became Lake Point is bad because George is a bad person. Now, what's interesting here is even though I was the bad guy, laws were being broken, hidden, and in the background, and it wasn't by me. Um, Lake Point was extensively permitted. There are so many opportunities for nonprofits, environmental groups, individuals, government agencies to object to Lake Point. There was not a single written objection to Lake Point, although that's not true. There was that one Fish and Wildlife which was addressed. But none of these so-called activists ever wrote letters, ever appeared at meetings, and we didn't realize what was going on right after that West Palm Beach presentation until many months later, because it all happened in the shade. It all happened with hidden emails that turned out to be illegal between various government officials and this one powerful activist. And the way that the activist got things done was she lied. It's that simple. And there were many lies, not just one. So some of these were in no order. And again, this is many years later, so forgive me if I'm not exactly correct. But one of the earliest lies was no one ever told us this was a water project. Well, it was from the very beginning. It was a public-private project, which was a surface water management system. It's what was approved. In fact, Lake Point was and still is a part of the Northern Everglades and Estuary Restoration Program. Since the day we got our permits, Lake Point has been a part of the Everglades solution as far as the water district is concerned, but these activists were told that that was never the case. When that didn't stick, they were told that the rock formation, the geology at Lake Point was not conducive to a water project. When the hydrologists and the scientists said, no, it is, then they moved on to the fact the science was slapdash. When we showed 5 feet of documents, hydrology models, water models, so many PhDs doing their thing, that wasn't good enough. Then the activists said, well, those models are fine, but they don't comply with the CERP, Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program. Well, when it was pointed out that this project wasn't part of CERP, it was part of the Northern Everglades Protection System, then they went to the most egregious of all lies, and that was Lake Point was destroying wetlands. Now, anywhere destroying wetlands is bad. Wetlands are sacrosanct in Martin County, and we knew that from the beginning at Lake Point. We took such good care of our wetlands, and the 2 or 3 acres of wetlands that exist are in better shape today than they were 10 years ago. This can be proved just by going to Google Earth. The activists claimed to the county commissioners, to the water district, that we were bulldozing wetlands, when it was proven that we weren't. It's not a matter of opinion. It was proven. The Army Corps showed it. The DEP certified it. The water district came on site and proved it. Martin County proved it. Everybody said, no, guys, they're not destroying any wetlands. We don't know why people are saying that. Then they changed tacks again. I don't want to get in too much detail about the court cases, plural. There are so many of them. But the important thing to know is that each and every time, regardless of the issue, Lake Point was vindicated. There were judges in multiple jurisdictions. There was a mediation, which ended up with a large judgment against Martin County for public records violations. There was a jury trial. Then there were several appeals. Each time, the court, the jury, the arbitrator, and the various judges, not just one, many, many judges, all ruled in favor of Lake Point. The case is still ongoing, and it's at the U.S. Supreme Court right now. The case, when it didn't do well on the science, they shifted it to a First Amendment case about individuals' rights to speak up. This, of course, has nothing to do with what this case is about, nor was it about in the beginning. The beginning was are public-private partnerships good? Do we have the correct contracts and permits to go forward? When everybody realized, well, yes, they do have the contracts, they do have the permits, all of a sudden, when all else failed, it became a First Amendment case, the right to speak your mind. I'm not going to get into the details of that other than to say that consistently with all of these different judges, juries, arbitrators, the opponents have resoundingly lost, and Lake Point is still up and running. Everybody, all the partners at Lake Point, needless to say, are sad that we had to go through what we did for so many years. What a horrific missed opportunity. How one activist could cost the state, the county, so much money, so much effort is shocking. I can't add up all the dollars spent, but millions and millions of dollars of lawyers' fees, hours of lawyers that could have been doing other things, uh, penalties paid by the county, rewritten contracts by the district, 5 years of difficult lawsuits. And even though we kept on winning, even though judges kept on commenting on the lies and how unfair it was, it didn't matter. There was this one activist, and she had a voice. She was up against a quote unquote bad person. And so it was easier for her to have a bully pulpit and to complain. And it didn't matter how many times the courts shot her down. What is perhaps the saddest thing here is or the two saddest things are, number one, the loss of economic vibrancy. Lake Point, as I said, is in a rural, historically underserved area. We have been a driver for jobs and everything that brings, tax revenue, etc. All those years of fighting, we were able to stay open, but we weren't growing. We weren't revitalizing a area that needs economic help. Equally important is the missed water opportunity. 5 years later, had this one activist not gone on the warpath like she did, Lake Point would be up and running as per the American Water and Water District plan, approved plan. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think we would be providing about 10 MGDs of clean water to the system by now. Of course, everyone in this room knows better than I do that things change, and we might have encountered problems, but we might have encountered positive things that made it better. But the important thing is, rather than be cleaning water and sending it where it is needed, millions of dollars were spent arguing because one person didn't like what we were doing. I added this slide in here from TC Palm, the Stewart News, from a local person who's interested in water, and the title is "Avoid Discharges by Saving Storage Areas for Lake Water, Not Farm Runoff." Well, what was Lake Point? It's a storage area for lake water. That's what Lake Point is. And so, although I'm not talking about this gentleman specifically, the activist who was complaining and anyone who took her side about Lake Point, there was an irony here. Lake Point, at no cost to the district, was designed to store water that would have otherwise been dirty and thrown back into the system. It was designed to clean water, and we desperately need that. And some of the same people, although I'm not talking about this person in particular, who complained about Lake Point, would turn around and in the next sentence complain that we need more storage. Of course, they didn't want private storage. They wanted public government storage. Now, Lake Point was not designed to solve all of the St. Lucie River, the C-44's problems. The estimates when the modeling was done was around 10%, but that was called a material impact. And The solution